2, 1. One, two, what it do? Welcome back to the Mic Check Podcast. This is T Word, the People's Champ. Today we're talking about Devin Haney versus Regis Prograis in the card that was on DAZN on Saturday night. But before we get into the video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and then drop some comments and let us know what you think about the content. All right, so let's go ahead and get right into it. Devin Haney, Regis Prograis main event on the Saturday night for the WBC 140-pound championship. However, before that fight took place, they had a pretty interesting card. Not a whole lot of, I guess you could say, marquee fighters, but definitely some interesting matchups. And we're going to go through those really quick before we get into the main event. All right, so we start the night off with the basically free portion, the before the bell portion, where a Devin Haney protege opened up the card. You had Shamal Canal versus Jose Antonio Meza, and this was a featherweight fight, which ended up in a decision win for Canal. So Bill Haney was in the corner as the lead trainer, so he started the night off 1-0. Pretty good foreshadowing that his fighter was pretty much dominant throughout and took away a nice little victory. Next up on the card, you had Beatrice Fiera. She's a former Olympian who's going back to the Olympics, but she's also a pro. They allow you to do that now. She took on Destiny Jones right here out of Austin, Texas. And, high hopes for Destiny, but I understood that she was up against it would be Fiera, because Fiera she goes by the Beast. So that in itself tells you, if other people have named you as the Beast, you probably a real problem for everybody else. And she proved to be that throughout the fight. Her right and left hand continued to find a home for Destiny's head, and eventually later in the fight, despite her head movement and her willingness to make contact and put herself in the line of fire, it was just too much, and the fight ended up being stopped right before the 8th and final round. So in my opinion, I believe that Destiny's corner should have seen in the 6th round that their fighter could not overcome, and she wasn't going to land that big shot. I get where you want to hold on to give your fighter a chance. Like, man, she's a big puncher. Maybe she could land that shot that'll catch B off guard, and maybe she could balance out the tables. But she was getting swept. She didn't win a single round, and even in the 6th round, it's like her head movement slowed down, her activity slowed down. So going into the 7th, I felt like the fight was already over, and then she got knocked down. And then coming out for the 8th round, the doctor took a look at her. They felt that she was concussed. She didn't pass the eye test in the corner, and they called it after 7. It was a valiant effort for her, and she really didn't want the fight to stop. But focusing on the winner here, B did what she had to do. I mean, she looked very athletic, and I hate to put it this way, but the way that she moved had more of a male, physics to it. The way that her body moved, you could tell like she probably sparred a lot of guys, and she studies a lot of male boxers. Just the way that she delivers punches, her delivery system, her defense, her step back game, her step around game, the way that she throws the jab. You could just see a night and day difference between her and Destiny, who seemed to be fighting on all heart. But that was a 7th round stoppage basically going into the 8th. Next up on the card, you had another Devin Haney fighter under Devin Haney Promotions. This was going to be Amari Jones, and he stopped Kalisto Madera in the 5th round. And he weathered the storm a little bit. There was a couple times where he needed to bite down on his gum shield to make something happen, and he did just that. It ended up getting a stoppage. I believe it was scheduled for 6, and he won in 5. So shout out to him. Then you got into the main card, and you had another women's fight. This was going to be Ebony Bridges versus late replacement Miyo Yoshida. And this fight did not go the way that most people expected, because a lot of us really just didn't know who Yoshida was. And much like Destiny Jones, Ebony Bridges came in fighting on heart and effort, and she ran into a buzzsaw skill in Miyo Yoshida. Yoshida did everything. She had a great step around game. She beat Ebony up and roughed her up on the inside. So in the one area where it was like, okay, if you don't have the skill, make it ugly, get inside and beat your opponent up, Ebony couldn't do that. She did have a couple of shining moments during the fight, but throughout the entire 10 rounds, she just got beat on. The right and left hand continued to find home, especially the backhand. Yoshida was able to land it without much effort. She could just close her eyes and swing, and Ebony's face was going to be there. And as you can see in the screenshot on the TV or on the screen, that punch was there. That jab would set it up, and then she would come right with the right hand, and it was just just a lot of just one fighter showing skill and the other fighter just fighting off pure heart. So there was a decision, and the elation after the fight on the face of Yoshida and her young daughter. She goes by the fighting single mom. The daughter ran into the ring, and it was just a great moment for sports, specifically for women's boxing, because sometimes you don't get to see the emotional part of it, and a lot of people try to take that out because they want people to take women boxers seriously. But in this one, I think that it was necessary to see that this woman's fighting for her family, and she got in there and won the IBF title from Ebony Bridges. So shout out to her. Next up, you had Andy Cruz, and he took on Giovanni Strafon, and he got a third round stoppage. Cruz is looking good, man. I didn't know what to expect when he was going to turn pro, because he turned pro at 28. This is his second pro fight, and he's taking on guys with 20 plus fights. And he get in there, he busting ass. He got a nice unanimous decision in his first fight, 10 rounds, and then he gets a stoppage in his second fight. So he's fast tracking his way to the top. I believe he has two international belts now. One is the IBF and one is the WBA. And that's going to put him in line to fight guys like Frank Martin and some others at 135 pounds pretty quick. But I thought Cruz looked good. He was smooth. He was slick. He sat down on a couple punches. I still think that there's some work to be done. But if you want to get real ring tough and really build up your contact courage and learn to stand in the fire and throw good quality punches, I think being in the gym with Bozy Ennis and the team that helps Boots is going to make a world of difference for Andy Cruz transitioning to the pros. I think at first I was concerned it might not be a good marriage because his style's so different than that grittiness of Philly. But watching it play out on TV, I think it's the right place for him. It's adding some elements to his game that are necessary for the transition to pro, and I think it's going to pay off for him. If him and Keyshawn were to fight, let's say the next year, I think I still might lean Keyshawn because of his mastery of the pro style. I believe he just, he's got time on task. He's got more reps in that pro style, more rounds and everything. But if you give it 2 years and they get into it, and Andy's 30 and Keyshawn should be like 27 at that point, that'll be a damn good fight, because that'll be kind of like some get back after their amateur battles where Andy Cruz, I think he's like 4-0, 4-0 against Keyshawn Davis. But shout out to him for a good fight. Then you had the co-main, and it was Liam Paro versus Montana Love out of Ohio. And I don't know where to go with Montana Love from here because the blueprint is out now. Get rough with him, and just like Liam Paro said before the fight, he's going to fold. And the pressure folded Montana Love again. Steve Spark put the blueprint on display, and Liam Paro followed it to the letter and got him up out of there in the sixth round. And it was like, Montana Love was never really in this fight. You could just see that Power was imposing his will, and he did everything he wanted to do to bust that man's ass. And there was no question how that fight was going from start to finish. So he went on ahead and got a win and putting himself in line for the 140-pound champions. And he wanted the winner of the main event that we're going to talk about now. So Devin Haney and Regis Prograis. This fight was built up to be some version of a grudge match, but ultimately there was no smoke prior to the fight being announced. So for them to do a lot of jawing and all that stuff, I expected a way more exciting fight. I expected Regis to know how to close the distance, being 30-something, 34 years old. I just figured if something's not working, don't be insane. Try something different. And he just didn't. He just kind of kept doing the same thing over and over, trying to work behind a double jab or a single jab and really just putting himself in range to get hit with the backhand from Devin. And this lasted all night. Then he was dropped a couple times in the fight, and he lost a wide unanimous decision to Devin Haney. So I just don't understand what the strategy was for Regis and why he didn't have a plan B or C, understanding the level of skill that Devin Haney brought to the table. Having a little bit of power. I don't think he ever actually buzzed Regis, but I think he caught him off guard with the snap on his punches. And that's what a lot of people have been saying leading up to the fight. Devin could put some snap on the punches. He might not be KOing people, but he could keep you off him. And he did just that. He made Regis hesitant because maybe you're not getting hard, but you're getting hit 2, 3, 4 punches at a time. And that shit adds up. And I think that Regis' chin started to realize maybe we don't need to run in here. And I didn't understand why he didn't work behind a high guard to get inside and make it dirty on the inside, and maybe give Devin something to think about by landing a few good punches. Throughout the entire fight, I can only remember one memorable punch from Regis where he kind of hit Devin, and Devin kind of paused for a quick second, but then he got right back to it. So to me, you know, Regis seemed to not show up for a real fight, and he took a L. And now you have a new WBC 140-pound champion in Devin Haney, and it makes you wonder what's next. That's something that we're going to talk about in another video. We're going to wrap it up right there. Did you all watch the card? What did you think of the fights? Did you have any interest in the women's fights? Let me know down in the comments. This has been T, Mic Check 1 2, what it do, and I'm out. Peace.